This podcast is a member of the Place to Be Nation family. Visit us at placetobenation.com. The only
journeys untraveled throughout the wrestling world. Welcome Through the Looking Glass. I'm your co-host, Scott Criscuolo. Joining me as always, the Thunder from Down Under, Mr. Dave Hall. How are you, Dave?
I'm doing very well, Scott. Merry Christmas to everyone who's listening, and Merry Christmas to you especially, Scott.
Thank you.
And
you as well.
We're getting to that time of the year where trees are up and lights are on the houses, and I was sent out to put the lights on the house the other day outside. My wife said go put the lights up at the front of the house, and again this just ties into the difference in climate at this time of the year. I went out and got sunburnt doing it. So
I don't even want to hear that. We I cannot fathom how the hell you guys on that side of the world can have Christmas when it's like 79 degrees. I can't even. Dr. G loved to tell me through all the years when he lived in Florida that we swam on Christmas morning. I'm like, fuck you. There's usually 9 inches outside. Here in my neck of the world, here in the Northeast, we got our first significant snow of the season last night into today, and it caused some havoc. I slid a little bit today trying to get places. Ooh. And it was rough. I got lucky. The roads were empty when I was doing it, so thank God. But excuse me, I'm safe right here. I'm here with you, and we're gonna do a little mailbag this week for this final show of 2025. We thank you. We gave us some wonderful things. It's gonna be nice, kind of relaxing kickback. We won't go too crazy. We've had some with our. Oh, by the way, speaking of, before we continue, I want to thank all of everyone who gave us. I heard some multiple compliments and feedback on our 2003 Journey series, Dave. We got some great stuff on that, so we thank you for that. Interspersed with our Hogan alternate DVD. Speaking of, so we're good with that. So thank you. And if you haven't listened to it, please do. Incidentally, I say this every month. If this is your first journey with us, welcome. It is great to have you. Dave and I love those going on their Virgin Voyage with us. This episode is separate to the others. The only ones that are connected are the ones that involved the 2003 rebook. Though that's a series. We did that in July, September, October, November. But all the other episodes we've ever done have been standalones. So go back to the archive on placetobe.podbean.com, your podcast catchers, and go back and listen. Dave and I have done some amazing shows together. So, and we're going to be entering 2026. Who'd have thunk it? Who'd have thunk it? Crazy, right? And I've already got and I'm actually going to reveal it because Dave, I'm going to pull a little bit of the curtain back. Dave usually comes up with 80% of our topics because Dave's amazing. So, but this one was my idea, even though I stole it from the theme is from one we did earlier. So it's not totally my idea, but that's right. We're going to get into it. I'll announce it at the end of the show. Has to do with a retirement, if you catch my drift. All right. So
are you saying some wrestler retired recently? Oh,
yes.
Gee, I must have been missed in the news.
Well, that's what happens when it's Christmas and 80 degrees where you are. Get a little water there. All right. So we got some. Some of you gave us some scenarios that could be quick answers. Others we could do both. Because one in particular I got, Dave, is one that we could do an entire episode. Because nice. This is it. It's one that definitely you and I couldn't do in 15 minutes. No, that one's going to be a good. There's one that could be a 15-minute answer, like an abridged, and then down the line in 2026, maybe February or March, we'll do that one will be like a legit 90-minute, 2-hour episode on it because it's not one you want to skimp. So I might as well do that one right now. Let's lead off with that one.
Yep.
So Dr. G, he always, because this is his guy. And I told him, I said, after he said it to me, I said, well, there's a short answer and a long answer, right? He says, Dave and I could do a 15-minute answer, but we also got a 2-hour answer, which we'll do sometime in 2026. Very simple. What would so the question he had was, what would WWE have done with Steve Austin had he not retired after WrestleMania 19 and was still active as a wrestler? Well, the long answer will definitely be an episode at some point in 2026. We're definitely going to do that because, I mean, it's Steve. I mean, it's Steve. He's on the Mount Rushmore. The long answer will be at some point in 2026. The short answer, I think, well, he would have stayed on Raw.
Yep.
That's easy because you would have kept him on the live show and not the taped show. Although I don't know if Steve would even have cared. He might have gone to SmackDown. Who knows? He may even have preferred SmackDown if he wanted to actually wrestle guys. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think though I agree they probably would have kept him on Raw primarily because the idea they would have kept him and Rock separate. And probably him and Undertaker separate, and that's where Rock and Undertaker were really based out of SmackDown the majority of the time.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. And he could have had good feuds with interesting. We mentioned that. See, we couldn't do it on our 2003 rebook because we couldn't break the rules.
No,
but for this is a completely different beast. Because 2000, if we go back, Dave, and Steve is healthy, our 2003 rebook is completely different.
I know. It'd be amazing. So I think
because you obviously keep him in the world title picture, obviously.
Yes.
I mean, how do you not have no disrespect? I can't believe I'm saying this. No disrespect to Triple H, but looking at history, how do you not, whether it be, well, it can't really be WrestleMania unless you have both of them for WrestleMania 20. Maybe it's SummerSlam. How do you not have a Steve Austin Goldberg match at some point?
Oh, you'd have to. You would have to have that. I think your process would be if Austin is not retiring, then you're not going to get the Rock match at WrestleMania. You're probably going to put him in he'll probably end up in a number one contenders match, if not pushed into the world title match against Hunter to take the title off him at WrestleMania, so that you can build to a Goldberg Austin title match. That would be the direction that they're heading, which I would argue I think they would put Austin over Goldberg. I think.
Oh, they definitely would. Oh, they definitely would.
Yeah, like the short answer is, like you said, Austin is in the title picture. We're going to get some big matches. Like they probably give you an Austin. Like I could see Austin Scott Steiner being like a number one contenders match at No Way Out, rather than Steiner getting the second title match against Hunter. But you're going to end up in a situation where I think a few guys that got a bit of limelight and showtime in 2003, they're the ones that are going to be impacted most. Like your Booker T's, your Rob Van Dams, even Kane, who all sort of got a good run with Hunter.
Mm-hmm.
They're all going to get pushed aside. And you're going to have Austin as the primary focus. Maybe the biggest beneficiaries become Orton and Batista when they're back. Like a 100% evolution against Austin at the back end of the year as part of sort of Triple H's plan. I think you'd see some matches there. That's where I think you'd see Austin delving and investing into the next generation.
I agree. I also think deep down, because I think both of them will think that, and they're wrong. Both of them will think that they shortchanged the audience at WrestleMania 14. I think you see a match between Steve and Shawn.
Yes.
Because they're both healthy. Shawn's a little smarter. Shawn would probably go to Steve and go, "Listen, I'm sorry. Number one, I was injured. Number two, I was an asshole. And let's do it again and have some real fun."
Yeah,
and I think that could be something they they do. So the short answer is there's so many possibilities. Long answer, we'll probably do a full episode at some point next year.
Yeah.
Where we'll book Austin like month by month as a healthy wrestler. I would love to see Steve with the big gold belt. I think it would look really cool.
Oh,
maybe he'd do another another smoking skull gold belt. That would be kind of wild. That would be kind of cool. So great. That's a great one, Dr. G. I knew he was going to say that one, but that one we need to give justice. Tonight we didn't. We just kind of gave you a taste. But sometime February, March. Well, March will probably do a Mania episode. Maybe April we'll kick around the possibility of doing a Steve one. So, all right. Let's see. I'll do the second one. All right. Let's do this one. I don't know if we did this one, but our boy Matt Farrell, who of course hosts Ruthless, and we both have. I think my episode aired. I haven't looked yet. I'm sure it did at this point. He has this one. He gave us a few. I'll do the first two, and then you can do the next two. What if the Rockers title change over the Hearts aired? In other words, what happened if the ropes didn't break? Well, Jim Neidhart would have been fired.
I think that's the. I think they would have gone with. Okay, we've got two sides to work with. We've got the Hearts. We've got the Rockers. I think you're right. Neidhart gets fired, and I think they do the push on Brett, the singles push on Brett earlier, probably to the point that I think Brett faces Perfect at WrestleMania. But Brett gets his Intercontinental crowning moment at WrestleMania rather than SummerSlam.
I think you're right. Because that's a bigger money boost than I guess the feud with the Boss Man and the Heenan family, and they can figure out something else with that.
Yeah, I mean the Boss Man feud really, it really was a fizzer around. Boss Man's work with Perfect. I mean, it just never felt like it had a lot of juice by the time the starting point with Rude was fine. But when Rude leaves the company and then it shifts to, let's just make it the Heenan family.
It doesn't have the same teeth.
It does. No, it doesn't. So I think you would have probably blown that through by Rumble, maybe, Saturday night, the main event. Maybe that's where you do the blow off the Boss Man and Heenan with Bret Hart slowly climbing up for the title shot at WrestleMania. And I think you looking there now you picture this, you've got Bret Hart coming into his own with 5-6 months of single work under his belt, and you've got Mr. Perfect before his back has actually gone out on him. And imagine giving those two 15-20 minutes at WrestleMania. I think they would have torn the place apart.
Totally. And the show would have needed it. Well, I mean, and I think overall you make WrestleMania 7 a better show because Hogan Slaughter, Warrior Savage, and then Brett Perfect. Oh my God. Yeah. Instantly WrestleMania 7 in history gets elevated to a better show.
Absolutely. And then it allows Brett can just start on his run. I just think then his IC title run is just extended by 3 months. They can, and they'll probably end up going the same direction they did at the, by the time you get to the end of the year and the Mountie and the Roddy Piper and into WrestleMania next year, that becomes, I think, the direction they would end up with. But it allows them to probably do some form of showcase match for Brett at SummerSlam, whether it be a rematch or whether it be, with someone else. I think that's Brett's trajectory. So that's the Bret Hart side of it. The Rockers side of it, that opens some interesting doors because it was clear that when they put the titles back on Brett and Anvil, that it was a temporary measure. They wanted to put Brett into the singles realm. So they always intended to get them off him as as soon as they could, which becomes the WrestleMania moment with the Nasty Boys. But I think if the Rockers have the belts, I think they're going to be showcasing them more. I think you would have had a tag title defense at the Rumble. You can have that Rockers Orient Express match at the Rumble becomes a title match.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's no change there.
Yeah.
That match was a banger anyway. It's one of JR's of my favorite matches.
Yeah.
Now it's for the titles. Yeah, fine. So do you have the Rockers then? Do the Rockers just lose to the Nasty Boys at Mania?
No. See, this is where I think you want to come back to. To me, this is where you come back to Power and Glory, because you never got the big time blow off where the Rockers win at on any major show. So I think I would have them defend the titles against Power and Glory at WrestleMania and have them win clean. Absolutely. Yeah, this is where the Rockers get their ultimate revenge. You can build up through the Orient Express match. Maybe Power and Glory kick up a stink that they didn't get the shot. They should have got the shot, and coming out, because they beat them at SummerSlam, they beat them at Survivor Series. Then by now you've got the belts on the Rockers, so you could be. Well, do you argue maybe the Royal Rumble match is Power and Glory, the blow off to Power and Glory, and you move the Orient Express match to WrestleMania?
Well, that would be interesting. Another match that could be. Are we rebooking WrestleMania 7? I feel like we are, and I think we're actually making it better. And that show's already one of my favorites, but I think we're actually making it better.
Yeah.
we added Brett and Perfect, and now we've added the Rockers and the Orients. I think we just added 2 4.5-star matches. That's crazy.
Because I think because they're not looking at the Rockers push at Shawn's singles push yet, you don't need to take the titles off the Rockers. You're not wanting to push Shawn like they took the titles off the Hart Foundation because they wanted to push Brett. That's simple. So the only reason the Nasties won the belts is they wanted to just take them off the Hart so they can make Brett a singles guy. Without that situation, I don't think that the Nasties win the title. I think the Rockers can have a title defense in a barnstorming match, and then you can build. Maybe the Nasty Boys face LOD, and then you build. I reckon you could build then to a babyface match at SummerSlam between LOD and the Rockers, where you put the belts on LOD, but in the process of the match, that's where you could do the early start of the Rockers breakup. You could have, Marty doesn't make the save in time, or Marty accidentally gets thrown or clotheslined into Shawn, and Shawn, so you've got that sort of not quite a clean finish when the two baby faces fight, and that sort of, Shawn is just a little annoyed at Marty, maybe sort of shoves him off or glares at him, but then they sort of shake hands with LOD and pass the torch to LOD, and you can start the push to the Rockers breakup from there.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'm fine with that. That works. So we eventually we get to where we're back in the Prime universe. We're just kind of going a different route, a different path. And the Rockers get some shine as tag team champions. I'm totally cool with that. Cool with that. Good one, Brendan.
Because we know in the end they're going to want to put the belts on LOD. We know that. Of course. They're going to put the belts on LOD. It's just how you get there. Look, you could do, if you wanted, a Saturday Night's Main Event where you do the quick title change and the Nasty Boys win, and you just do the same thing, and then LOD, if you don't want LOD versus the Rockers. But I think you could just as easily have that as your title match.
Okay. Yeah, no, I agree. I think that's a good stretch. And I can't believe we just did this, but we actually rebooked we actually rebooked WrestleMania 7 into a better show. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Because now we get Hogan Slaughter, which, we know that. We get Warrior Savage. We obviously know that one. But now we've added Brett. We've moved up Brett Perfect, and we've moved up and we've created Rockers and Orient Express. And both those matches are probably 3.5 to 4.5 stars. So,
and you're probably going to throw in LOD Nasty Boys at WrestleMania, which would probably be a barnstorming brawl.
Yeah, and they'd have to amp it up because the one at SummerSlam sucks. It should be so much better. They could really amp up the violence there, and holy crap, we just did a separate show. All right, number 2. This one's I love you, Matt, but this one's comical. What if Dynamite Kid is the one that comes back in 1990 or late 90, early 91, and not Davey Boy?
Yeah.
Well, I think he probably lasts about 2 months. He fucking kills snaps the leg of some jobber, and Vince fires him. So there you go. End of story.
Look, I'll tell you when I think the time period wouldn't work in 90 when Davey Boy comes back. But if Dynamite didn't have the bad back, I really think the time period for Dynamite to return to the company would have been 93. When Brett's the champ and 1, 2, 3 Kid gets his push. Can you imagine bringing Dynamite in around that time period with your Raw, with Monday Night Raw getting its drive? You're starting to push Brett, you're starting to push Shawn, you're getting the smaller guys over, and you bring Dynamite in to have a match with Shawn Michaels, to probably have a match with Brett as babyface versus babyface, or even a heel Dynamite, and then Dynamite versus 1, 2, 3 Kid. I think that's where it would have really worked. I don't know that Dynamite coming back in late 90 into 91 fits the time period. I don't know. There's a lot of guys that Dynamite could work with. I think if you bring him in, he's going to end up getting shoved in another tag team. But if you brought him in 93, you've really got a lot of options available to you. Dynamite would have fit better if his back wasn't out in 99. He would have fit better in WCW. Can you imagine him with Brian Pillman and a match against Flair and Bobby Eaton, and even a match against Sting? Like that's where I think Dynamite would have been a better fit.
Yeah, I actually like I'm being funny, obviously, but if he could behave, so let's go that way. If he could behave and not be a raging lunatic and shit in people's bags or whatever, I think he'd be fun in 93. I think he'd be a lot of fun in 93. I think he'd be he could be in 93, and I'm not comparing, we're not comparing personalities or anything, so just bear with me for anybody rips my head off. You could compare 93 Dynamite Kid kind of like to what would become like 2000, early 01 Benoit when he came to the company, from just a guy who just goes out there and just starts knocking guys crazy and twists them into pretzels. And I think he'd be a fun guy to put in there in 93. And maybe feud with Shawn over the IC belt. If you make Shawn a face a little early, you could make Dynamite a face and feud with Shawn, and give him a chance to grow his personality a bit. And if he could be trusted, I think he's a guy that could make some waves and actually make the in-ring product in 93 and 94 even better overall. So, and if it doesn't work out and he does go to WCW, I don't know if the lack of discipline backstage would be helpful for him. Because if he could, you want to talk about hazing. Yeah, I would. I think if we're looking at personalities, I think WWF would be better for him because I think that the discipline backstage would be better conducive for him. I don't feel like in WCW he'd kind of be left to his own devices, and I don't know how kind of a road we'd have. We have to be realistic about that.
Yeah.
So I do think he'd fit better in the WWE in an overall sense, but in WCW from an in-ring perspective, I do think that there's a lot of guys there that he could battle, like you said, Pillman, Too Cold Scorpio, Ray, when they start getting some of the Mexican guys in. That one's a good one. This is why I keep you around, Dave. I made a big joke about it. We could have moved on to the next one, but you actually stayed open-minded. That's why I keep you around. You keep me open-minded. I like that.
If you want to take it back to Matt's original question of what would you if it was that late 1990 time period, I think Dynamite would have to come in as a heel. I don't think you could bring Dynamite in as a babyface because you need Dynamite to be. He could at least be he could help elevate Brett. He could help get Brett, in the IC title picture. He's the sort of guy that, you could see him fighting Jake the Snake as a heel. But I don't know that he's got the size in him. Even when he was at his biggest as Dynamite Kid, he was still smaller than. I always feel he was still smaller than Benoit. I mean, he had that. I loved his in-ring work in the Bulldogs. I mean, the Bulldogs were one of my first favorite tag teams, and a lot of it was because of Dynamite Kid's in-ring work. But I think in late 1990, early 91, to go in as a baby face. I mean, all his opponents are, it's Earthquake, it's Dino Bravo, it's Barbarian, Haku, all these big guys, because they've just bulked up so much that I think he would just get lost. And you've got Perfect as your IC champion. I can't see he fills the workhorse character, but we've already noted that he ends up in this feud with Big Boss Man because they don't really have much else for him to do. I mean, Dynamite's going to end up, as a baby face, he's just going to end up wrestling. He might have a couple of matches with Perfect, but then he's really going to be just bouncing around the lower end. A Rick Martel. He might have a match against Paul Roma. There's nothing really there for him because of his smaller size. Whereas you brought him in as a heel, you could put him in a series with Brett. You could, maybe Texas Tornado. You can have you've got a couple of guys, at least size-wise, that aren't going to dwarf him. Jake the Snake. That'd be an interesting match, Jake and Dynamite. But I just think he's just not big enough by 1990. To stack on more muscle, he'd be blowing it'd just be clearly a bigger story problem than what they had with Warrior and Hogan.
Yeah, no, I got you. Yeah, no, so that's it. So, Matt, as much as we joke about it, that was actually a pretty good. That was a pretty good question. So, all right, Dave, what do we got next one?
All right, I'm going to jump. There's an interesting question here. I want to jump down to a question we got from Luke Jennings. And,
my buddy Luke. I love Luke.
Yeah. Yep. There's he sent through a couple of interesting ones, but here's one that I've never thought about, and I think this would make an interesting conversation, and it really is only a short form question. If he had not died in the mid-90s, where would you see Eddie Gilbert's role in professional wrestling being in the late 90s? And I think that's a really interesting process because Eddie died in what was it, early to mid 1995, I think is when he was it 94 or 95 he passed away.
Who's that again? Who?
Eddie Gilbert. Eddie Gilbert.
93. I think he died in 90. I think he died in 93. Actually.
I've just looked it up. February 1995.
Oh, really? I thought it was. I thought it was earlier than that.
I think he'd been a bit unwell before then. I'm just having a quick look. Yeah, sort of. He'd been involved in the GWF and did some work in the USWA. He wasn't doing a heck of a lot after he left ECW in 93. So I think this is an interesting conversation though, because when you look at Eddie Gilbert as a wrestler, and then you look at the state of wrestling in the late 90s, you've got your three companies. You've got WWF, ECW, and WCW. Straight out, I would say where he fits best in terms of probably the work that he did, where he would fit best would be ECW, except that he and Paul Heyman had the fallout when Eddie leaves ECW originally and Paul takes over the book, because Eddie Gilbert was the booker before Paul Heyman, and there's a big fallout between, from what I understand, big personal fallout between the two of them when Paul Heyman ends up taking over booking ECW, and Eddie sort of felt that Heyman had been undermining him and had sort of been intentionally trying to get Eddie out so that he could take over. So I don't know if Eddie would ever ended up going back to ECW. So does Eddie Gilbert, if you're looking at a world of professional wrestling, does Eddie Gilbert fit either WWF or WCW? Where would you put him? Where would you use? I'm not sure he's a guy that Vince would use. I think his only destination point could be WCW.
Probably, yeah. He was in good shape. He was a great worker. I think he would have been a good man. He would have been an amazing manager. You could have kept Hot Stuff International going. I don't know if eventually the NWO would have phased him out as a almost too old school, too Southern. Because there's the problem there though with Eddie Gilbert is that Bischoff got annoyed at all that. We're trying not to be too Southern, and Eddie was definitely Southern. He was a Memphis, Nashville guy. I think he's a Lawler guy. So, that's my only concern with Eddie and WCW is I feel like by the time Bischoff really took over, he wouldn't want any of those, hillbilly rednecks around. He wanted to be more global. Having said that, Eddie Gilbert's no dope. So I do think that Bischoff might have trusted him on a committee. And I think Eddie Gilbert might have been a pretty damn good booker for the NWO. Yeah. I don't know if he would have put up with Hogan's bullshit or definitely any of Nash or Hall or any of those knuckleheads. That would remain to be seen. But I do think eventually he would have been on the committee and been a pretty good booker. Having said that, I'm going to flip the coin because I do think that Vince would have totally trusted Eddie Gilbert. If Eddie Gilbert, was not on the, snorting bookings up his nose, I'd like to think that Vince could trust him because Vince trusted Jerry Jarrett. So if Jerry Jarrett and Eddie Gilbert got along, which I think they did, maybe Eddie Gilbert could have had a nice comfy gig in the WWF and we might have gotten some decent work rate, and certainly we would have gotten the teaching of how to cut a good promo. And now the question I'm curious about, and maybe this is something I'm gonna have to ask Chad Campbell this because he may know better. I wonder if Cornette and Eddie Gilbert got along.
Yeah,
because Cornette has no patience for friggin' anybody. So Um,
and not just Cornette, but JR. Like I
Yeah.
don't know enough about when Eddie was sort of on the booking committee in NWA, WCW in that sort of 1989-90 time period, what his relationship was like with JR and Cornette, because that's the big key. Because I look at Eddie, and I look at a guy like, I agree. He had, from what, and again, I didn't get to see much of him because we never got much. I never got to see much of his work down here in Australia. So a lot of it's what I've read, what I've learned, and what I understand. I know he had a great mind. He was a good booker at a young age, did some great work, could cut a promo, all that. And I know he was decent in ring. But one of the big negatives, and you come back to the work in like coming under Vince, one of the big negatives would be his size. He was very small for a professional wrestler. And from Vince's point of view, he would have been tiny, from the sort of guys he liked. And even at the, even with the growth of, sort of the 95, 96 using the smaller guys, Eddie's a lot smaller than Brett and Shawn and Austin and guys like that. So from a body size perspective, he wasn't super muscular.
No, he wasn't.
It's not the sort of guy that you could see Vince using, which is why I sort of thought he might fit more with WCW from a size perspective. But I do think if he doesn't have issues with Cornette or Jim Ross, I'm actually wondering if that Attitude Era, that 98, 99 time period, he's the sort of guy that would, character-wise, probably could have worked and got himself over in that time period as a heel, actually, you could see he's the sort of guy who would have been brought in as a heel and probably got himself turned babyface because of who he is and the type of character he can portray. I could picture him coming in that time period and working with with your Owen Harts and your D'Lo Browns and your Val Venuses, and he could have been that. I don't know that he would have ever got an upper card run, but I think he could have become a mid card glue guy that could have bounced a few of those mid card feuds to help keep that undercard together.
Yeah, totally. So yeah, I definitely think I agree with you about the Vince. Like he was like a mid card in terms of his in ring, but I think by the mid '90s he would have totally been in the booking. I like that question. That was a good question, Luke. I like that.
I'll give you here's what I think where Eddie Gilbert would have thrived is not the late '90s Monday Night War period. It's when WCW and ECW go under. Can you imagine Eddie Gilbert going, I'm now going to put together a company of guys. I'm going to pull this together before Jeff and Jerry Jarrett put together TNA. I could picture Eddie Gilbert reaching out to guys and going, I'm going to become the opposition now. Let me put it together. I think that's where you might have seen Eddie Gilbert really flourish, would have been as the post WCW ECW potential opposition to the company. Get some sort of financial backer behind him. He's the booker. Probably not going to be much in ring at that point. He would have been nearly 40. I mean, he's still pretty young, but
right.
I think he could have been the guy that put together a bit of an opposition for Vince. So I think that's where we might have seen Eddie really come into his own.
Yeah, I agree. Maybe that's imagine an episode of Through the Looking Glass. We go to an alternate universe where Eddie Gilbert starts his own promotion. That'd be pretty fascinating. That'd be pretty great. I like that. All right, pick another one. What do you got?
All right. This one, I like this one. One of my Aussie friends, Shawn. I like this one as a short form. How would you book HBK and Eddie Guerrero? They never wrestled. They never really They never really wrestled a program against each other. And we're not talking about if Eddie didn't pass away. We're talking about before then. Like how might a HBK Eddie Guerrero match have been put together and come about? So I think you're clearly looking at, post HBK's return. So you're looking at that light sheet steel Eddie. You're looking at that time period. I think you could have had some fun with that. I could picture you could start it. If I was to do that, because I think they'd have a hell of a match. Eddie and Shawn would have an absolute amazing match if they were one-on-one in the ring. So trying to find a time period, I think you could put them into a WrestleMania. I mean, can you imagine them at WrestleMania instead of Eddie versus Ray? I mean, let's flick into that time period. You've got Eddie on the verge of turning heel, so willing to perhaps go the extra mile. So what's that? We're looking at 2004.
Eddie turning heel. Early 05, mid 05.
Mid 05. So when did he wrestle Ray? Was that 05?
Yeah, that was 05.
WrestleMania. So let's pull that match out. Let's do this here. Let's say Eddie and Shawn are going to wrestle at WrestleMania in 2005. That's going to be their match, one-on-one for the first time. Okay, let's backtrack. How are we going to bring them together? Where's the starting point? I'm wondering if the starting point is Royal Rumble. Eddie, you start backstage and you do what we've seen a couple of years prior. Eddie steals Shawn's number. There's your start point. You started as a bit of fun. Eddie steals Shawn's number, and Shawn knows that's what's happened. He knows that Eddie's nicked his number, but maybe he can't do anything about it. And Shawn's in the, as a result, Shawn gets an earlier run, and Eddie has to come in later. And I think during the match, Eddie would need to eliminate Shawn, I think, and he would have to do it blatant cheating. Maybe Shawn has sent Eddie to the floor, and the referees miss it, and Eddie immediately jumps back up and drags Shawn backwards over the rope, sends him in, quickly gets back in the ring, and is sort of doing the old, it wasn't me. I don't know what you're talking about, when the refs are telling Shawn to go, and Shawn gets a bit hot about it. He's like, I eliminated him. He was gone, and Eddie's like, that innocent look on his face, not me. It wasn't me. And so then I would probably look at, that's where I would start it. What do you think? How do you feel about that as a start point?
I agree. I like that a lot. And then I'll go next step further. Shawn approaches Eddie and says, "You know what, Eddie? I've paid attention to you for a long time. I remember I watched you wrestle here in the company and before in WCW, and I was trying to find my way when I had my demons, just like you had your demons. And this lying, cheating, stealing thing is cute, but it's not going to last, man. Come with me. Follow me. Let me find the real you and get off this path of cheating and lying and find the Eddie Guerrero everybody wants to see, that fought his demons, that got fired from this company, that had to go to rehab. Let me help you." And Eddie goes along with it for a while, and then eventually he turns on him, beats him down, bloodies him.
Well, before we get there, let's say I like that, and so maybe Shawn invites Eddie to Raw, and it's sort of like they start teaming together, And in the middle of matches, and you'd have to tread the line very carefully, that because of how loved Eddie is and the antics are, you've got to be careful that you don't have Shawn get turned heel by the crowd. But
Right.
I believe Shawn could pull it off. But in the middle, like, they start teaming together, and in the middle of a match, Eddie goes to cheat, and Shawn stops him.
Yep.
Like, Eddie goes to grab a chair, and Shawn's like, no, we don't need the chair. We can do it without the chair. Let's put the chair down. And you could sort of see Eddie sort of like they lifts the chair up, and then sort of Shawn's talking to him, and Eddie puts the chair out of the ring, like drops the chair out of the ring, and then they do a move. Shawn hits a super kick, and Eddie comes off with the frog splash, and they win. So you could do that for a couple of matches, and then maybe the pay-per-view between between Royal Rumble and WrestleMania, they're in a match, whether it's a tag title match or not. That I don't think it matters, but they're in a match, and the ref could go down, and in the middle of the match, Eddie could do his, fake out. Like he pretends he's been hitting the chair and he's lying down in the ring, and Shawn is just like, "Get up! You can't get up! You've got to stop." And perhaps he even tells the ref. Like, the ref goes, "Oh yeah," like he does that, and the ref goes to disqualify the opposition, and Shawn grabs the ref's hand and like, "No, don't do it. He's lying. It's
Mhm.
not they didn't actually do that." And while that's happening, the bad guys roll Eddie up, hit him with a title belt, whatever. Like, Shawn's got the ref distracted, and it allows the opposition to beat Eddie by hitting him with a belt, hitting him with a chair, do something that's the blatant cheating that Eddie would do. And the ref counts 3, and Eddie, when he gets up, he's furious with Shawn. He sort of shoves him, and Shawn's trying to appease it, like, look, I'm really sorry. That's not what I meant. And they leave the pay-per-view as, they seem like they've put it aside. But then the next night on Raw, Eddie's had enough. Like, it happens again in the middle of the match. Eddie goes to cheat or does something, and Shawn is trying to tell the ref again, "You can't, don't fall for it, ref. Eddie's cheating." And Eddie's had enough, and that's when and then he turns. He flips and just takes Shawn out, and beats him bloody.
And like I could see, like you said, the chair. He does that whole gag where he brings a belt in and then pretends the other guy hit him. And Shawn's like, no, I'm grabbing the belt. I'm putting it outside. We're not doing that. And Eddie's looking at him like, come on, it's a joke. And Shawn's like, nope.
Yeah, and that's where it starts there.
Yep.
So the first couple of times they team, it starts there, but they still win the match. But then at the pay-per-view, the arguing with this time around, he actually, like, the ref turns around and sees them both down, or sees the chair in, he does the whole, whether it's the belt or the chair, throws it into the bad guy's hands, falls down, and the ref sees it and goes to disqualify him, and Shawn stops the ref. It's like, no, that's not what you do. And that's where the moment starts to turn for Eddie. He's like, we've moved from we're having fun now to you're trying to make me someone I'm not. And then he does the beatdown, and that's where the next week on Raw, that's where Eddie, you were talking about, wanting to bring out the real me. This is the real me.
Right.
This
Yep.
is who I am.
Yep.
Right. And the real me is the guy who will do whatever it takes to win. And Shawn, I'm going to prove it to you, because at WrestleMania, I will do whatever it takes. If I have to hit you with a chair, if I have to beat you bloody, if I have to, whatever it takes, I will do that, and I will prove to you. And Shawn can be doing like you said, we don't need to go down that line. I'm not going to go there. You've let the demons, you've let the demons take you over.
Yep.
And at WrestleMania, I'm gonna, he can lean into a little bit of the faith element. I'm gonna let the light, the goodness will shine, the light will shine. I will show you that good is better than evil, that the light is greater than the darkness. All those sorts of,
Yep.
faith connotations that that you can play up. But I like I said, you have to walk the line carefully to make sure Shawn doesn't turn the crowd against him for stopping the fun cheating element. But I think Shawn is good enough to and loved enough that he could probably be the one person who could get away with it.
Exactly. And I think they could stretch that for maybe a couple of months after that. We'll see. That's a good one.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I like that one. That's a very good one. I should answer this one because this is all me. I mean, I want your input, but I feel like I have to answer this. So we'll go back to Matt, and he had another one. What if Batista's injury forces him out forever, or the company? If you watch the Evolution episode of Ruthless Aggression, they weren't sure if they could totally trust him, and they do keep Mark Jindrak in Evolution. I I don't know. I don't know. I have a feeling that they would have turned on him a lot faster and found somebody else, or they just stuck with the three of them and they just stick with Triple H. Because that seemed to be the way. When Batista was hurt, they decided they did that whole walking up the street thing. They did the four of them, and then they did just the three of them. So I feel like Jindrak, had they decided to kind of roll with him, I feel like they probably would have went for a while. I don't know if Jindrak would have ever totally figured it out and still would have acted. Besides, the other problem was him and Orton were acting like a couple of assholes. So I don't know. The answer is I don't know. I don't know if they would have lasted together. I don't.
No. I think because you've got to look at where does the dynamic come? So Jindrak was going to be there instead of Batista. That's the talk. So you don't have the big monster in your group. Jindrak is more built like Orton. So do we end up with Orton and Jindrak just becoming a bit of a tag team? I think I can't see a much more of a role for Jindrak. I can't see Jindrak teaming with Flair. I don't know that Flair would have put up with like Jindrak's apparent attitude and antics as a tag team partner. I think the Batista Flair thing worked because Batista was the big hulking monster, and Flair is the older guy, so Flair could hide behind Batista in the tag matches, whereas he can't really do that with Jindrak. So I almost feel that if Jindrak was in Evolution, it actually hurts Orton because they would need to team Orton and Jindrak up as a team, because I don't think Jindrak had the one-on-one skills to be launched. And eventually you would have had to have, it would have come down. I think, they would have had to make the decision. It would have been Orton having to turn on Jindrak. Orton kicking Jindrak out of the group, because Jindrak he's costing them matches. He cost them a title match, and Orton's had enough, and Orton's going to take him down because of it. I'm not going to put up with this nonsense in-ring style. Like, they might have been friends backstage, but I think you would have had to have broken them up. Orton and Jindrak face off one-on-one, and then they probably bring Batista in anyway. Or maybe that's the thing. Maybe Batista gets brought in as an associate, as a bodyguard. Like you've got the Evolution element, and then next thing you see is Hunter brings in a bodyguard for the group. Batista is the bodyguard for the group, and slowly but surely you can see that Jindrak he's not gelling with the others, and he costs them a couple of matches, and it's Orton turns on him and Jindrak just lays waste to him, and then you're basically kicking him out and replacing him with Batista. I think Yeah, I think I agree with you. I struggled to find a way that Jindrak works in the group. And the only way it would be early on would be as a tag team partner to Orton. He and Orton have a run with the tag titles, but when they lose them, they're always going to want to push Orton as a singles guy because of just he was so good. And they're going to want to elevate him, and to elevate him, they've got to get him away from Jindrak. So you get rid of Jindrak.
Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah, that's a sad one. That's a sad one. I just don't think that would have. I don't think that would have flown.
No. Well, while we're talking about tag teams in the time period of sort of 2003, let's we got another question here from Matt Farrell, and I want to tie this one up because this one comes directly from some of the work we've done with Matt. So for those of you, I'm going to do a quick plug. Matt Farrell is the host of the Ruthless podcast, and that comes out I think fortnightly. Both Scott and I have had the opportunity to be guests with him, and if you haven't heard it, check it out. He's a great guy, brings a lot of fun and brings a lot of good humorous elements to his podcast. So
he does.
So check out the Ruthless podcast. But the question he sent in comes a direct. I think he's asked it knowing that we've both been on the podcast with him, and in his nature, he asked us this question. He goes, "What if Buggin' and Buggin', Mark Henry and Rodney Mack were to win the tag titles in late 2003 and have a run with them from October to WrestleMania?" So that's the time period he's been looking at. He's looking at that mid to late 03. And when we did our 03 rebook, I don't think we even mentioned Mark Henry and Rodney Mack.
I honestly don't think we did either. I think we mentioned him maybe in like a mid-card sense, or maybe we kept him hurt. I don't remember, but it's sad because the showpiece of Thuggin' and Buggin' was Jazz. Really, I mean, she was the the beast of the of the faction when she was tagged when she was women's champion.
But you could have her. But there is. Let's. I think then you've got to utilize that element. So I think Jazz needs to become that second outside influence. Like Thuggin' and Buggin' come as a group. It's all four of them. It's Teddy, it's Jazz, it's Henry, and it's Rodney Mack. So Rodney Mack and Mark Henry, if they're going to win the titles, they're probably in 03, they're probably going to need to beat the Dudleys. I think you have them beat the Dudley boys, and Jazz can be at ringside with them, and the Dudleys could have put Jazz through a table one week, and they put it through a table as revenge. But you've got the belts on them. I mean, really, where do you go with them? I think they're just you got the White Boy Challenge. I'm picturing them inviting jobber tag teams out for tag team title shots. Like that's where I think you could get some fun with this. In like that when they first win the belts, you could have whoever it is that wants the title shot is getting pushed aside because they're bringing out their weekly White Boy challenges. Well, bring out two white boys to challenge for the tag team titles, and they're bringing out two absolute nobodies. Never heard of them. They've got no history. They're just two jobbers that come out, but their job is getting a tag team. Almost reminiscent of the old superstars of wrestling. It looks like they're getting tag team title shots,
right?
For absolutely no reason.
Right.
So
yeah, I could. Yeah, sure, I could see that. Maybe we didn't mention Thuggin' and Buggin' at all. I thought maybe we did, but I don't know. Maybe Red feuding with Kane or something. I don't know. We'll have to. We might have to go back and listen because I thought you may make a good point. I don't totally remember. Maybe they didn't.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I don't think we did bring them up, but I guess if you're looking at them as a team, then I think in the end, as I said, they're probably taking the belts from the Dudleys. I guess if you're wanting to take it to WrestleMania, the question is who who are you wanting to build up and put the belts on by the time you get to WrestleMania? Like, who is it? I mean, we've just spent, we've just spent 4 or 5 months um in the heart of this time period, and we've probably booked it in a way that they're the only guys that we can think of are the ones that we put in. But I mean, do you look at uh are thugging and bugging, like, this is the time period. Are you building towards needing someone like Rob Van Dam? Look, when you look at WrestleMania, the following year, WrestleMania in 2004, WrestleMania 20, the Raw tag titles end up around the race of Rob Van Dam and Booker T. And I think there's probably your destination. I think that they could do their white boy gimmick. They could beat up some lower card white boys, maybe, or some lower card teams. You do some makeshift teams. You've got your Garrison Cade and Mark Jindrak. You've got Maven. Maybe you've got Maven, and Maven could team with. I mean, hell, I don't know. Team him with. I mean, Chris Nowinski is already hurt by then, but
Yeah.
you could team him up with, uh, with one of those guys. Maybe you've got to, do a, uh, you've got to do a multi-man match, so you get that multi-man match that you got, I think, at Armageddon, where it's Evolution and the Dudleys and La Resistance, and you're just putting them in at the end. But I think perhaps where you end up bringing it to is Booker T starts to take exception to their antics, the racist overtones that they're putting out, and Booker T starts coming out and going, "This isn't cool, guys. This you're painting us all in a bad light, and I don't like it."
Right.
And Booker he's got a friendship with Rob Van Dam, laid back. Maybe there's the next thing. Maybe at Royal Rumble, Henry and Rodney Mack end up just beating down Rob Van Dam. They're beating him down in the ring, and the Huda goes, and Booker T comes out and gets involved with them. So in the couple of weeks leading up to the Rumble, Booker's been calling them out. What you're doing is bad. You're painting us all in a bad light. You need to stop. And they're going, nah, maybe they're even trying to recruit Booker T into the group.
Well, they definitely would be. I agree. Yeah.
Yeah. They're trying to recruit him in, and he's like, and so at Royal Rumble, they're beating down Rob Van Dam in the middle of the Rumble, 2-on-1, and he's just getting slaughtered. The Huda goes, Booker comes out and hits the ring, and Mark Henry and Roddy Mack are like, maybe it's just they're the only ones in the ring. And they're like, they sort of step back like, he's all yours. You can beat this guy down. And Rob Van Dam can sort of stand up and see, like, he sees the scenario, like it's, oh no, now he thinks it's 3-on-1, and Booker's giving him the glare. And then in typical WWE station, then he turns and just starts beating on Mark Henry and Roddy Mack, and Rob Van Dam joins in, and perhaps they even eliminate one of them or both of them, and the Royal Rumble continues. And then on Raw, Teddy Long, they're calling Booker out. You had the chance of a lifetime to join us. You didn't want to, and now we're coming for you. And so a one-on-one match between Henry and Booker, all of Thuggin' and Buggin' attack him. Rob Van Dam comes out to make the save, and you build it that way. You build it out over the next few weeks that Rob Van Dam and Booker T start working together, saving each other from Mark Henry and Rodney Mack and even Jazz, and you lead to a WrestleMania title shot. Rob Van Dam and Booker T challenge thugging and bugging for the titles at WrestleMania, and they win the belts from him, and sort of put an end to thugging and bugging that night. They lay him out, grog splash on Teddy Long to end the at the end of it after they've won the belts, and thugging and bugging are off into the sunset, never heard from again.
Yeah. No, I could definitely see that. Or you could spin it. You imagine if Booker T, then maybe, you could also do. Yeah, no, I could see that. That's a good question, though. I like that we just had to book Thuggin' and Buggin'. I think that's funny. You and I could literally book anybody.
Now you're going to bring the questions in.
Yeah, I know.
So book Dwayne Gill to the title in 1998.
Yeah, that's pretty funny. This is an interesting one. So Dolph Ziggler, of course, wins Money in the Bank in 2012, and then he, of course, cashes in the night after WrestleMania 29. He beats Alberto Del Rio, but then gets concussed, and then he's never the same. Well, he's the same. He becomes the same, but his career in the WWE just is never the same. What if he doesn't get the concussion? The crowd was into him, even though he was a heel. The crowd was into him.
Well, there's the first question. Does it force a babyface turn? But the crowd being into him, and he's cashing in on Alberto Del Rio. Is that enough to actually turn him babyface?
Maybe. I wasn't there. I know a lot of people that were there at the Meadowlands Arena the night after WrestleMania 29. And, the place was absolutely nuts. And he also was facing a guy that was never a warm and fuzzy babyface anyway in Alberto Del Rio. So I think it's easy to say that I think the crowd would have totally got into him. And I think the crowd would have totally got into him. And the crowd would have totally got into him. And I think he would have turned him face. And I think he'd have been he'd be a pretty good world heavyweight champion for quite a few months.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe into Summer. Now, SummerSlam 2013. Obviously we were getting into the Daniel Bryan story. So I don't know how that would affect things.
Well, maybe if we take it back a step, maybe if you don't turn him babyface, and despite the fact the crowd were behind him, if you don't turn him babyface, I think you've got to, you keep the belt on for a couple months. Can you imagine Daniel Bryan versus Dolph Ziggler at SummerSlam? Like, there's a match that would tear the house down.
Yes. Yeah, I agree.
And
I think the crowd would be hot.
And you could still do the end of the match the way they did it with Randy Orton cashing in after, Daniel Bryan wins, Randy Orton cashes in afterwards. You could still do that element. You lose the Daniel Bryan John Cena, but I think that's probably where you end up prior to that. Like, if Ziggler wins the belt and doesn't get concussed, he's probably going to end up in a series of matches, a couple of matches with John Cena. And, because that's the time period we're in. And he's going to need to keep the title some nefarious way. You've probably got to put him in a match against Punk as well. Is that the run from, there's your probable run from WrestleMania to to SummerSlam is most likely his first opponent's probably going to be Cena.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's wrestling Cena on pay-per-view. So what have we got there? He's got so that would be Extreme Rules. Extreme Rules is probably wrestling, probably Extreme Rules and Payback. You go back to back where he's wrestling John Cena. First one he probably gets DQ'd or counted out. Second one he probably cheats somehow to retain the title, or someone attacks Cena to build to Cena's next match. And then at Money in the Bank, I'm wondering if you put him in a match there against Punk, and you allow Punk, who's just sort of gone back to his baby face element. I think you have Punk be the challenger to Dolph Ziggler there. He gets by over Punk by cheating or whatever, but setting up that then he faces Daniel Bryan at SummerSlam. And then you can have, like I said, then Daniel Bryan wins, Randy Orton cashes in Money in the Bank, and you're off on the Daniel Bryan storyline, and Dolph Ziggler gets shunted back down the card.
Yeah.
I don't think you get a lot of storyline with Dolph as champion, but I think you could get some good, like the matches there. I think are what would make it worthwhile. He's going to have a couple of barnstormers with John Cena, then he's going to tear the house down with Punk, then he's going to tear the house down with Daniel Bryan. But of course, it's not what the regime really want, and we're going to end up with the belt back on one of the guys they like, the Randy Ortons, the Albertos, which is why I think they just put the belt back on. They just do what they did. Orton wins Money in the Bank and cashes in, or Orton cashes in at Money in the Bank. You have Punk win at Money in the Bank and Orton cashes in there, and straight away. Either way, I think that's where a Dolph Ziggler title run finishes.
Yeah, I agree. I think we get some good matches, but in the end, I think he'd eventually drop the belt at some point down the line. So, Daniel Bryan's just the more engaging character. I mean, again, Dolph's fine. He's a good worker. He had that stretch where he was hot for those couple of years, but in terms of tugging the heartstrings, I think that Daniel Bryan just had more gravitas with the fans. So, but that's a good question. That's a good question because, Dolph got shortchanged because of that injury, and we don't know how long he would have when he was healthy. So it's interesting.
I'll tell you what would be a fun little element to being able to look back from where we are in 2025 and knowing where history takes itself. If Dolph kept the title, as I said, one of the matches is with Punk. Dolph was working with AJ at the time. AJ was they were the unit. It was Dolph, AJ Lee, and Big E was their muscle. So I'm picturing AJ being caught up in this match between Dolph and CM Punk. I'm just picturing the element of AJ Lee being at ringside back then, and while she's the heel, so you could start. I mean, I don't know when their relationship started. I honestly don't. But I'm picturing being able to look back with a bit of fun, going AJ Lee is in Dolph's corner, but picturing this build up to this match of AJ flirting with CM Punk and then Dolph Ziggler attacking from behind, and in the middle of the match, AJ Lee grabs like CM Punk's he's got Dolph down, he's signaling for the go to sleep, and AJ jumps up on the apron, and CM Punk sort of turns and looks at her, and she grabs him and gives him a big kiss, which allows while he's doing that allows Big E to come into the ring to level Punk. But I think I could picture some fun being in there, especially as I said, I don't know when Punk and AJ started their relationship, but if it was around that time period, I could just picture them having a bit of fun with some of those elements. AJ doing the flirtatious thing, kissing him on the ring apron to distract him, and
Right.
costing in the match as a result.
Yeah, that is funny. That would be funny. Interesting question here. If Andre the Giant, this is an interesting one, actually. I got to think about this. I thought this, again, another one that I thought would be easy, but maybe not. If Andre was fit and healthy and did not pass away in 1993, how would he have fit in the Monday Night Wars?
Wow.
I don't think he would have. I think Andre would have been perfectly happy in retirement. I don't know if he wanted to travel. He loved being on his when he was healthy, even towards the end, he loved being on his farm down in North Carolina with Tim White and his wine and everything. I don't know I think he would have left wrestling. That's just my opinion. I feel like you've got something much more fun. I'm such a party. I'm such a party pooper. No, he's done. I mean,
I agree in the reality of it. If Andre hadn't passed away and his body didn't fall apart on him, I don't know. I struggle to see him fitting in, especially in the WWF.
I was about to say
98. And
that's I think
primarily
the Attitude Era. I think the Attitude Era would have disgusted him.
Not because of his, if we're talking about Andre's body can still go, we're not talking about that it's not his in-ring work that then becomes the issue, but it's his ability on the mic. He never had the ability on the mic that would sustain him in that Attitude Era.
Yeah, I agree.
It wouldn't. Where I would see Andre is if we take the question where it is, he's fit and well. It's 1997. Andre can still go in the ring. He's obviously not what he was in 1975, and he probably can't throw drop kicks. I see him in WCW. I see him as a counter to the New World Order. I see him as when Hogan joins the NWO, it's not Piper who gets brought in at Starrcade 96. WCW bring in, it's Andre. Can you imagine babyface Andre versus heel Hogan, with Andre getting someone, he doesn't need to do a lot of talking, or you could have a Roddy Piper as his mouthpiece. But I could just picture that's where he fits in. He's standing up for the tradition of the sport. He would be against the NWO. And then tied in with that would be maybe he comes in and that's your Starrcade 96 match. It's Andre and Hogan for the title. Look, Hogan can win by DQ. He can run away. They could do the stupid thing that they did where the title's not on the line. But it's Andre who defends the honor of wrestling, not WCW, but wrestling against the New World Order. And then after that, Andre versus the Giant. There's the match I think that would be fun to check out. Whether they run the story that the Giant is Andre's son and you've got a father-son story, or they just acknowledge here's the next Giant trying to, he's like, I want to take the mantle. I've come to take the mantle, almost like Big John Studd style. I'm the one true Giant, and Andre and Paul White have a match in early 97. That's where I think Andre's role would be. He would be the defender of the traditional values of wrestling, up against the New World Order in WCW. That's what I think that's the only place I could see him working, because I don't think he's got the mic skills to, with the shift and the attitude era. I don't think he would be, like you said, I don't think he'd like the attitude era values. I think he would move aside. But the NWO, then the NWO is attitude in WCW, but the guys that go against the NWO, they're standing for the traditional values, and that's where I think Andre sits.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I'm not saying that I think Andre would have a little more tact than, say, Bruno did in the 80s. But I think he would say, I got to be honest, boss, I'm not into this. I'm not into this. I don't want chicks and boobs, and I know. Chicks and boobs are meant for the hotel after. Andre would have kicked it completely misogynist, old school. Chicks are for the hotel after. We don't need, women. We don't need this. And, and I think the company would have shown respect to him. The main event guys, the Rocks, the Austins, the Triple H's, the Takers. I think that wouldn't have been a problem. And maybe Andre could have sat with them and said, listen, you don't need to go out there and drink beer with, well, if you drink beer with me, we're not going to have enough coolers. But if you're healthy, I don't know where he fits there either. Does he go back to being a heel, and after Austin wins at WrestleMania 14, he becomes the guy? I don't know. I'm liking your thinking better, because I think as much as Bischoff didn't want to have the old school way of thinking when he was running WCW, I think Andre would have fit better there than in WWE just at that moment, because I don't think the Attitude Era would have been his thing. So yeah, I totally would have I totally would have go with your thinking. I still like my philosophy, and I know I'm the boring party pooper. I don't know if Andre would have been in the business that deep into the 90s. I think he would have been happy with retirement, sitting on his farm in North Carolina, drinking beers and just relaxing, drinking wine and hanging out. I think he would have been a good WWE Hall of Fame inductor for people. He definitely would have shown up at the Hall of Fames. But but to be honest, your philosophy, I think, is the only way. I want you to think that that's the only one. The only way that goes is being in WCW. I don't think he would have lasted in the Attitude Era. I just don't think Andre would have done it. But no, I mean, it's not a bad philosophy to think about that. I would love Andre to be alive. I mean, he'd be in his, I don't know if he'd be living at this point. He'd been in his 70s at this point. I don't know if the illness would have eventually did him in. He could have been a great, the other thing too, the whole, Big Show was Andre's son. That's kind of crazy. Yeah. That would have been funny.
And that's the storyline where, like, from a perspective of age, and like I said, I mean, Andre was born in 1946, so he's 50 in 1996. So in 1997, he's 51. He's probably not going to have a lot more years ahead. So that's what I'm saying. Like, you have to see him in WCW 96, 97 against the Giant, against Big Show. That's where you probably do it. But that's where you do the match when Big Show is at his athletic peak. But in terms of storyline, that storyline would have been done so much better by Vince. Could you imagine Vince basically doing the whole Andre had an affair? Like, the Big Show is the illegitimate child of Andre. That's how Vince would have done it, and Big Show would have been he would have been resentful that Andre had never been there for him, and all the other guys had dads, but he only had his mum. And so that's where I would see a storyline in WWF with the Big Show as the illegitimate son, and Andre needing to sort of defend himself and prove himself. And Andre would be saying it's not true. I'll do a DNA test. And they face each other, and Andre beats the young pup down, or if he's working, he's maybe he passes the torch to the Big Show as his as one of the losses out the door. I mean, I'll tell you what would have been interesting, and I know people have talked about this before, but if Andre had made it to sort of 97, 98, and he's looking at the landscape going, you know what, look, I need to get out of here, Vince. I'm doing okay physically, but I just, like you said, I don't like the direction. He's talked to some of the boys. I just don't like the direction. I think it might be time for me to retire. He does a retirement tour. I see him putting Taker over at WrestleMania. I see him being willing to lay down for Taker as part of the streak. And maybe it's if you're doing like 97, 98 before you bring Kane into the picture, like you could do, where it would fit best would be that 99 when Undertaker had gone to the Evil Lord. So instead of the big boss man match, it's Andre against Taker as Andre's last match, one-on-one in the ring. So you could have heel Taker, so you're not but you've got babyface Andre, and everyone, you could even do the whole, Andre has only ever lost to Hogan, or what, you could, you jig the storyline. I mean, if Andre was going to be healthy, I don't think he's doing those jobs to Ultimate Warrior in 1989. If his body's up for it, we don't have that crap. You've probably got a history where the only guy he's ever lost to is Hogan. So you could do very much the Undertaker's never been defeated. Andre's only ever been defeated once by Hogan. And now you've got heel Undertaker versus Andre, which becomes Andre's last match. And he lays down for Taker, allows Taker to get the win, and sort of, Andre sails off into the sunset, having done the honors for the next boss, the man who is the conscience of the company, the man who takes over running the backstage in The Undertaker.
Yeah. Oh, he would definitely put Taker over. I don't think there's any doubt about that. He would totally put Taker over. And I think he would be like an Austin, where you see him pop in from time to time. But I think as he gets older, he just likes to stay. He'll just stay in his farm. But you know what, Dave? This is why I keep you around. You're the happy party guy. I'm the pooper. Nah, he's just gonna stay home in his farm and drink. And you actually came up with something. That's amazing.
I've got a question for you. I'm going to take this. I want to do an offshoot question to Andre. We're saying Andre is still around. Andre, because his body doesn't fall apart, he's still with the company in 1997. Okay. We've talked about what he might be doing. All right. But my question is, does Montreal happen if Andre is still in the company in 97?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And if Vince did that behind Andre's back, it ain't going to be Brett that's swinging a punch. Vince is going to get hit. Vince is going to get hit with a 30-pound ham. Andre would have had no patience for that bullshit. Absolutely not. And I'll go on any podcast and say that to anybody. If Andre was a booker, or if Andre was in the company, Montreal absolutely. You know why? Because two things. Number one, he wouldn't have let Vince do it.
No.
He would absolutely not have let Vince do it. And number two, I think Andre sits down with Brett and goes, listen, I get it. This sucks. But you got to do it.
I'm going to take it a step further back. I think we don't get there because Andre wouldn't have let Shawn get out of hand.
That too.
Andre would have been pulling Shawn aside earlier in the year. This isn't gonna cut it. And if you're gonna act like this, you're gonna be dealing with me. And I think Shawn just goes, "Yep, no, whatever. Who do you want me to? You want Brett to win the match, Vince? Not a problem. I'll put him over. There'd be none of this. I'm not laying down for anyone. I'm the show star." Like,
yep.
He might put it on in front of the camera, but you don't get the behind. Like, you could portray the showstopper character, and you could say the line, "I don't lay down for anyone" on camera, but it's not a behind the scenes attitude that would have been tolerated by Andre. Andre just would have gone, "Not a chance. Not a chance."
Yeah, that's true. I think there's three schools of thought there. This is a great question, actually. Much better than I thought it was going to be. Good call about Montreal, though, Dave. You unpeel the layer of the onion. I don't think Vince has the balls to do it. Number two, I think Andre sits down with Brett and Shawn collectively and says, "Guys, you got to do this like men. All right, Brett, if you're leaving for WCW, time for you to go. You got to drop it. I'm sorry, life sucks. Get over it. Shawn, get your head out of your fucking ass, or I will put it in there." And I agree with you. Shawn will go, "You got it," and Brett will go, "All right, I'm good. I'm good." So, would Andre have been a legitimate voice of reason? Yeah, I think he would have. I think you would have seen a lot of things. I think you would have seen a different culture. I don't know if Andre would have loved the Attitude Era, but I think he's also not stupid. And I think that he would have understood the business aspect of it. He gets that the times are changing. And we do need a little more TNA. He goes, "I want no part of it. Let somebody else." But he also probably would have, I think Vince Russo would have attempted to punk him out, and I think Andre would have been like, bring it on, you flabby Ginzo. You know what I mean? Like, I think, it's amazing, Dave. If Andre was around the company at that time, I think that I think the culture in WWE would have been very different.
I agree with that, because I think if Andre was around, you don't get the rise of the Clique, because all the antics that we get that lead to Montreal are all a result of the rise in backstage power of the Clique.
And they had zero respect. They had zero respect for Slaughter or Pat or any of those fucking guys. And Vince wouldn't have felt neutered because he wouldn't have just let them do their shit. If Vince was, let's go pre-Attitude Era. I agree with you, Dave. Let's go like 94, 95, 96. I don't think we get this cabal of dipshits. And look, I love the Clique. No one's a bigger Clique fan than I am. This cabal of smart-ass hooligans running a company. Andre did not grow up in an era where the inmates ran the asylum. So I don't think you see that. And I don't think anybody's drunk on the road, which would have been a bit of a hypocrisy. Although apparently Andre never wrestled drunk.
From all accounts, it took a lot to get him drunk.
Well, exactly. Exactly. I don't know if he could have sat there and had time to finish 3 cases of buds before getting in the ring. Yeah, I think the culture and the tone of the company would have been different, because I agree with you. I don't think the Clique, I would have dared those guys to get in his face.
Well, you
Andre
take
would,
it.
and also
Yeah.
the other thing too, Dave, is that Andre needed to be healthy. If Andre's walking around looking like Stu Hart, they would have treated him no better than any other guy back there.
No.
But if Andre was healthy, walking around like the cock of the walk, like he was the man, and the Click was not going to get anything past him, you would have seen a very different locker room. A guy like a Dean Douglas or Bigelow would have been in much better shape.
Well, maybe not Bam Bam, because we know Andre didn't like Bam Bam.
Andre hated Bam Bam. Bam Bam would have been gone. Bam Bam may never have been to the company.
But into that time period, like, and again, the whole premise of the question was that Andre's body hasn't failed him. So we're talking about, he's not necessarily Andre the Giant from 1975 who can throw drop kicks, but he's still able to work and travel, and his back's not out, and his body's not falling apart. That's the premise of the question, or of our position. And I think that time period in 95 when the Click starts to get their real power, I don't think it happens with Andre. Now, Andre had his crew, and we know there were posses. We know, I think the Click would have wanted to work together, and there would have been no issues. But the moment they started trying to play the politics with Vince, Andre would have been there going, no, that's not going to happen. And I also think that when I look at who was in the Click, from everything I've seen of Kevin Nash, I actually think Nash and Andre would have got along like a house on fire.
I think so. I think Nash would have been like, you know what? This fucking guy's going to make us all money. Maybe we should stop acting like a bunch of dickheads and actually listen to this guy, because he probably is smarter. I'll be honest with you, in a weird sense, and I don't know how far this could have gone. We're really going down a rabbit hole. We'll finish our show with this, because we're not going to get a better one than this. We'll finish the show with this. I can't believe I'm about to say this. I almost think Andre, if he was a backstage guy and was around there all the time, and he was behaving and booking and taking it seriously, because apparently Andre did book house shows back in the 80s. He like when Vince was off doing another thing, like Andre apparently was the boss on some MSG house shows.
More ways than one.
Exactly. He would run some MSG house shows and some house shows in Canada. I legitimately think he would have been more respected than even Vince.
Yeah.
Vince is the boss, but Andre's the wink boss.
Yeah.
Now, how long that would have lasted, I don't know. I mean, what's Vince going to do? He would have popped his head like a grape. But and I don't know if people think we're being a little naive. I don't think so, Dave. I do legitimately think that if a healthy Andre was a backstage, forget the in-ring part. If you're talking in-ring, I think it's two different schools of thought. I agree with you. If we're strictly talking in-ring, he would have fit better in WCW, except to put Taker over. That I agree with. At a WrestleMania, which would have been, oh my God, imagine the gate for that. Woo!
Oh,
forget Austin and Rock. You could book a Mania on that.
Yeah. Look, I think there'd be some other guys that come 95, 96. Can you imagine him? I could see him putting Brett over as well. Brett at the peak of his main event run as the baby face, finding a way, chopping the Brett we got against Diesel, that I could see Andre, because I think Andre would have respected Brett. I think he would have.
Oh, totally, because
Brett.
Andre knew the family and he knew Brett from back in the 80s. No, Brett he totally would have had respect for. I think Andre would have respected Shawn's ability.
Yep.
He would have had to just shake the asshole out of him. Pretty much. But if you're just talking strictly in ring, he totally would have worked. He totally fit more in WCW. But if Andre is like the overlord of the locker room or the overlord of the company in terms of the day-to-day TV and that kind of thing, I think he would have been more respected than Vince, and I think that would have made for an amazing company. I think Andre would have had to learn a lot about the TV part of it, because I don't think Andre gave two shits in his prime about the TV part. And I don't think you get, like, when guys like Hogan come back. I think if guys like Hogan came back, you would like to have thought that Hogan would have behaved, and not whined about payouts and all that kind of bullshit. But that fascinates me more than the in-ring part. Is what does the culture of the back like? My only issue with Andre, and I got to be legit about this, is how he would have handled the women.
Yeah.
The only reason I say that is because Andre grew up in a time where the hot chicks were the ring girls and roadies. He was dealing with, like, the mullahs and all that. Totally different culture in 96, 97, 98 with Sonny and Sable and Terry and Jacqueline and all that. I'd like to think that Andre would have adapted to the times when it came to the women wrestlers. I think he would have got a kick out of seeing women actually have amazing matches. But I do think that he would have had the utmost respect of the locker room if he was the guy, like the overlord of the bookers, because he would have had Pat's trust. He'd have had Blackjack Lanza's trust. He would have had Bruce Pritchard's trust. He would have certainly had Vince's trust. And you know who this is crazy. You know who he would have had the most trust for, and I think would have been the big glue thing? He would have had Linda's trust.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think Andre could go to Linda and kind of set Vince it depending on the situation, of course. Having said that, Vince is the boss. We understand that. We're not saying that Vince would kowtow to everything Andre. No. But what I'm saying is, if Vince wanted to avoid issues, he would use Andre's influence to fix any issues.
Yeah.
That's what fascinates me the most. But if we're strictly talking in-ring, if Andre was still healthy and in-ring, I think he would spend some time mostly in WCW. But I do think he would come back to the WWF, and whether it's WrestleMania 14, 15, or 16, or shit, if he's healthy in 2001, I understand the Triple H storyline, but how about Andre and Taker in front of 60-something thousand at the Astrodome?
Oh, yeah.
So you anchor that with Rock Austin and all the other stuff that happened at that show, and you got yourself money. And you got Andre think about that. Andre puts over the face of the Federation era, and then, 14 years later, he puts over one of the faces of the Attitude Era.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, imagine if we did it. Like, we really can't do an episode on that because we can't really fantasy book backstage. Imagine that would be pretty funny. But yeah, I think in a nutshell, that's a great question, by the way. In a nutshell, I agree with you about the in-ring. I think if we're strictly talking wrestling, he would have been better suited in WCW. And he would have thought ECW was ridiculously stupid.
Yeah.
He's like, they're hitting each other with light tubes and frying pans. What the fuck is this? No. He would have had zero patience for that.
But I don't think we should answer this question, but I just ask it as a flow on from everything we've just talked about. If he was to end up in WCW, all the stories of the backstage issues they had in WCW, Hogan's political pool and the Nash Hall and Flair and Arn and all the chaos backs. Can you imagine they bring Andre in? I just think to myself how quickly that would have all disappeared. Hogan would not have been saying that doesn't work for me, brother. At Starcade '97,
No.
Sting doesn't look tanned enough. Boss, you're putting him over. Oh, yep, no worries.
Yep. All right, I'm good. I think ultimately, you had to open this rabbit hole. I'm going to say this one thing. I want to talk about Andre. I want to do another episode where we just talk about Andre. I love this. The question I have to ask you is, and maybe he would. Vince had an utmost respect for Andre because of what Andre did for his dad. All right, the relationship between Andre and Vince Sr. was probably rock solid. Can Eric Bischoff treat Andre with that same kind of respect? That's my ultimate question. He idolized Hogan and wanted to be his buddy, but can he respect Andre? That's the ultimate question, because Bischoff was a weird guy like that. Maybe he would. Who knows? Yeah. Anyway, that was a lot of fun. Thank you for your question. We have a bunch here still that we're going to hold off on. We'll probably do our next mailbag either maybe in April or May. As for the Steve Austin 2003 one, that is definitely going to be an episode. There's no doubt about that. Again, we want to win sometime in 2026 when we have a quiet month. Dave, that was a ton of fun. I enjoyed that. This is why, again, I don't say I gave up on the questions, but I think of it more from a real life standpoint. And I like how you go, yeah, but give me a minute. I like that. You're good like that. Like with Dynamite Kid, I'm like, no, he'll piss somebody off, shit in the wrong duffel bag and get fired. And you're like, nah, but wait a minute. I respect you for that, Dave, and I always will. You can check. Obviously, we're over on the Place to Be Facebook page. Check out all the stuff. A ballot will be up. It might be up now. If you're listening to this the day it drops on Wednesday the 17th, there is a ballot up for the next what the next episode of Wrestle Tracks will be. Thank you for your input on shows to put on the ballot. Greg Diener and I will do the show obviously later in the month. Dave, all is going well over on the Chronoso. You guys got a bunch of stuff. Where are you in the timeline right now?
We are now between Royal Rumble and WrestleMania in 1991. So we're doing the build to WrestleMania 7. So
okay,
it's all fun. We'll be there for a few weeks.
Yep. Well, guess what, Chronoso listeners? You may be hearing this voice on a Chronoso in somewhere in this timeline. So just keep your ear open. I'm also on a couple of future draft episodes of the Chronoso, not Chronoso, the No-So draft episodes that Ryan Gray and JR host. Just keep that in mind. Of course, we've had a great month here. We are giving our next main episode of Main Event will not be until 2026. Andrew Reich, a lot of work issues and stuff, and so we're giving ourselves the week off, the month off. We'll Main Event will be back in January. Steve Willie and I will be doing something this week, though. I'm not going to tell you what. It'll drop this Friday, the day after tomorrow. But Steve Willie and I are doing something this week. And so there will be an episode of something involving me and Steve Willie at the end of the week. So be ready for that coming up on Friday. So here's my announcement. Dave and I normally don't do this. I do this on Wrestle Tracks all the time. But Dave and I normally don't announce the next episode because either A, we'd like to keep it a surprise, or B, not that we never know what we're doing next, but Dave usually has like 5 different topics in his head. So I let him churn those and give me what he thinks would be a good next, but I'm actually going to do it. So if you've been listening to the show, you know that back in, of course, late July, we lost arguably the greatest superstar that ever lived in Hulk Hogan. And in August episode, if you haven't listened to it, if you're a new listener, check out that episode. It's amazing. When we were in the midst of our 2003 rebook, Dave and I took a month off in August, and we decided to create our own alternate universe, Ultimate Hulk Hogan DVD set. Like if you bought a DVD in an alternate universe, what would be on it? So we did a bunch of, we did a nice match list, and they weren't all flattering for the Hulkster. What we decided, we were picking matches that reflected moments in his career, as Dave says, for better or worse. And I thought it was a great episode. I thought it was awesome. So please check it out. and I thought the list was great. So I said to Dave, I said, you know what? There's another guy that I think we could do a similar thing with. So here's the big announcement. The first episode of Through the Looking Glass for 2026, Dave and I are going to do our ultimate John Cena ultimate alternate DVD set. So, of course, John Cena this past Saturday had his final match. He tapped out to Gunther. Yes, I know everybody's pissed off about it. But Dave and I in January are going to do our ultimate John Cena DVD list. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to do a list of matches, whether he was prototype or whatever, obviously we will put the Gunther match on there because we need to put a bookmark on it. And everything in between. And we're talking good. We'll do that, what was it, SummerSlam 2010 when he wiped out all of the Nexus. So we will, for better or worse, we're gonna stamp history with the best, with the most important. That's what it is. It's the most important, not the best. The most important matches of John Cena's career, for better or worse.
For better or for worse, the matches that reflect his career. I think I like that. It's it'll reflect the various elements of his career.
Correct.
So, like I said, there'll be some stuff on there that's not always good, but yeah, I think that'd be fun. And I wouldn't be surprised if while we're doing that, we might throw in a couple of alternate scenarios. I think them, we might end up having a bit of a chat about the last 12 months and maybe will there be anything else that we might have done differently? I'm sure all those
that's true.
Conversations will come up as we talk about those matches, because that's what it opens the door to. The time periods will open the door to, well, he could have done this in that time period instead. So
right.
Yeah.
So anyway, so that's what we're going to do for January. So stay tuned for that. Dave, Merry Christmas. Have a wonderful rest of your month and Happy New Year. Merry Christmas to all of you listeners. You'll probably hear my voice again throughout the month. And we hear also Happy Hanukkah to our Jewish listeners. Happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas, Happy Kwanzaa. And we will see you in 2026 through the Looking Glass.